Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. 1490 WGCH, this is Kerry Lutz. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. One of the great things, and I've said it repeatedly, about what I do is that I get to meet a lot of you. I get to talk to you, exchange emails, and it's really special. And when I can get a guest in the studio, just like you, a listener, that to me is the most fun. I enjoy it more than interviewing Mark Faber or Peter Schiff or anybody you can think of. And Ed Caccia, he is a loyal listener. He's been on the show with me before. He's here now in our new studio in Greenwich, and we're really happy to have you here. Ed, how are you?
I'm doing great, Kerry. Thank you for having me back. Love the new digs. Looks like things are really moving along for you.
Yeah, thank goodness they're going pretty good, and really enjoying the new digs, as it were. And the news keeps marching on. No matter what you do in life, no matter what's happening, no matter what you think is important, you know what? Life goes on, and life is going on in New York City, and that means another outrage from Nanny Bloomberg. I don't know if you caught his latest outrage, but he knows that as a new mother, you should be nursing your child and not using formula, and you know what? He might be right, and the science is a little sketchy, but seems to show there's benefits. But you know what? It's none of his damn business, is it?
That's an exactly right point. This gentleman just completely does not get it. Like you say, the science may even back him up on the fact that mother's milk is better than formula, especially in the first few weeks. But why are you going to go mandate something? This is just a repeat of the same sort of mistaken thinking this guy shows us time and again.
And there's another issue here. You know, these progressives, for lack of a better term, I could call them communists, collectivists, socialists, but we'll use their label, progressives. They're always talking how we need to put more money into education, education this, education that. They're really talking about giving payoffs to their union buddies. But let's take them at face value. We need more money for education. Well, if you're so into education, why do you need to dictate things to people like no double gulp sodas and you must breastfeed? Why can't you just have an educational campaign because you believe in education so much? And if the education is so good, people will naturally do the right thing, won't they?
You would think so. But when we look at what this country has spent on education, let's say just in the post-war period, it's trillions upon trillions of dollars. And what has happened? Test scores have declined. General intelligence is lower. Kids can do less sophisticated math and physics and sciences as we go by. So I think it's completely a red herring that has anything to do with how much you spend on education, and it's also the sort of education that they're giving us.
Well, we need smaller class sizes, Ed, because that's the only way children can learn. Forget about the fact that when you and I went to school at the height of the baby boom, 25, 28 kids in a class and no teachers' aides. When did teachers all of a sudden need aides to do their job? And then the kids that are a little bit difficult, they ship out to special ed, and we wind up with a system that exalts mediocrity and guarantees failure.
Yep, what an incredible misuse of so much money, and it's criminal what they're doing to children's minds in terms of not only the bad education, but these bad lessons that they're teaching, and that either government knows better or that throw money at a social program to make it better. You know, clearly these things don't work, and I think more and more people are aware of that fact.
Yeah, and I think people are, but there's a lot who aren't, especially in New York. You and I, we were reading some comments on my YouTube channel on Financial Survival Net at YouTube, and we were laughing hysterically, but we were laughing because they were true. This one guy said, "You New Yorkers have been neutered. You'll just put up with anything." And I'm becoming more and more convinced that he's correct.
Well, we have put up with a lot, and really, where does it end, and what can the average person do? There's such a disparity of wealth and power. I mean, just taking it back to Nanny Bloomberg for a minute, here's a guy who ripped Rudy Giuliani a new one for suggesting that he should have a third term to help bridge, the city in 9/11 and all. And, of course, what did Mayor Bloomberg do when his 2 terms were up? With his crony city council and all of his money, he just bought his way into a third term. I don't hear, anybody criticizing him for that. It's just a blatant double standard constantly with people like Bloomberg.
Yeah, well, he knows better. He knows what you should do. And I've met the guy one-on-one, nice enough guy. This was before he became mayor and before he became power crazy. But you look at what he always says, hot dogs are okay. I can go officiate at the hot dog eating contest where one person eats 68 hot dogs, 19,000 or 22,000 calories in one sitting. And yet, don't you dare have that double gulp soda, 32 ounces, that happens to be 320 something calories. That's bad. And hey, look, I don't believe that you should be drinking 32 ounces, but
Right.
The movies are so expensive. If you're a family and you don't have a lot of money, you buy a double gulp and everybody shares it. So what happens to people like that?
Well, it's true. And, where is Bloomberg's complaints on the garbage culture and the garbage advertising and the hollowing out of American values and traditions where people had common sense? It's due to just really foul manner of advertising and playing with people's minds to make them think that a 32-ounce sugar soda is something that they should do, or, it's the Pepsi generation, or it's this, it's that. Branding and all of that commercialism has been so deadly. And again, it's pretty pathetic that Bloomberg can complain about the results of these things, but never drills down into the true cause. As a matter of fact, he and his cronies are very much part of that.
And that is a great point you just raised, that they never look at causes. Because if we look at the whole healthcare debate, healthcare debacle, nobody ever looks to see why is healthcare, and it's really not healthcare, it's sick care in America, why does it cost so much? And the causes are much more complicated. They go back to the government. They go back to the American Medical Association's accreditation of medical schools, which artificially restricts the supply of doctors in America. It goes back to nursing accreditation. All healthcare workers have to get licensed, and that creates limitations of supply. It goes back to the patent system, and it goes back to the FDA forcing drug makers to go through major testing, whether it's necessary or not, that adds $1 billion to the cost of every drug done, and provides that only the big oligopoly producers have the people on staff. And that's why you pay so much for health care, for health insurance, and that's why you're going to keep paying more, because Obamacare doesn't address any of that.
You're right. And again, where is Mayor Bloomberg having any observations or criticism of that causality? And, Kerry, as you know, we've always we talk about historical things because we both love history. So something that a lot of people don't know about this country is that, before 1900 or so, this was very much, this is one of the healthiest countries in the world that led with a homeopathic approach to medicine and to health. And really, it was the big money guys who wound up buying the large pharmas who turned that on a dime so that the physicians and the primary mode of healthcare in this country became allopathic, which is I'm either going to cut something out of you, I'm going to put you on drugs, I'm going to treat the symptoms, not the cause. But this
Sure.
completely turned America, on its head, and unfortunately reversed a very proud and very effective history of personal health care in this country.
Yeah, and you know that for most of the diseases out there, they all can be controlled by diet and exercise, most of them, until they get to a point where obviously they can't. But I've got some slightly elevated blood pressure. You know what, Ed? If I go to the gym and I hit the treadmill for a half hour, for the next 48 hours, my blood pressure is perfect. And that's the same thing with type 2 diabetes. You get rid of the carbohydrates, you lose the weight, and it goes away. And yet it's so hard to do it. And I've gotten nasty letters from listeners saying, you should never have a double gulp, a bottle of Coke. It's horrible for you. And you know what? Once in a while, it's not going to kill you. But most of our health problems are our own creation. And a lot of them are stress-induced, stress-related. And like you said, we really got away from what gives us health and sustenance.
What made us strong as
Yeah.
people and as a nation.
Absolutely. So it's just an interesting turn of events. But I believe that with the declining economy, the economy is going off a cliff. I don't think there's any question about that. We're not going to be able to afford all this stuff. And in a lot of ways, that's a good thing. We're going to go back to the 1950s, Leave It to Beaver, where not all your kids have cars. There's one car in the family. Dad, can I have the car keys? And it's going to be a simpler and probably more humane time that we're going back to, but it's not going to be fun getting there.
No, I agree. And it's funny you mentioned this. I've recently been thinking about the concept of peak spend. We hear about peak oil, peak gold, peak this, peak that. Well, I saw some interesting graphs the other day of the precipitous decline in personal consumption and spending that people hit after age 50, and then after age 60, it goes down even more. And I think a large driver of the dynamic that you just described, Kerry, is the fact that so many baby boomers are now well into, peak spend or past it. If only that as a driver of declining amounts of, spending for things that you can't really afford, I think that's really going to underline, that process you're describing. I think we are looking at cultural change in this country, and I think if we're careful about it, we can help drive things back to some of the more well-founded, reason and purpose that Americans had, such as gun ownership. I was so dismayed to hear of the latest school, the shooting in Aurora. And one of the things that just really stuck with me is the thought that whatever owner of that business out there, decided in his mind to make it a no-gun zone. Well, here's all that guarantees. If and when something bad happens, the only gun or guns that are going to be on scene are the ones held by the bad guys.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't know if you caught this video. A guy was in an internet cafe down in Florida, I think around Tampa, and internet cafes are evidently some kind of gambling loophole that have arisen in Florida. And these two guys come in. One of them has a baseball bat, and he's proceeding to bust the place up. And the other one is pointing this gun all over. And then this older guy in his 70s just comes out of nowhere and starts unloading on them. And they run, and they're falling all over each other. It's actually reminds me of a cartoon. And they catch these guys, of course, they arrest them, and then they're out on bail right away. But maybe they learned something getting shot a few times each.
Well, hopefully they did, but I'm glad for the shooter that it wasn't in New York, because Bloomberg would have had him arrested.
No doubt. We've seen that, like Bernard Goetz and others. So, yeah, totally agree. Well, Ed, hey, thanks so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to see you. And thanks for sharing breakfast with us and some coffee. And we'll be having you on again soon.
Kerry, I enjoy every time I'm on. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see how well the show is doing, and best of luck to you.
Hey, and good luck to you and your kids. By the way, if you want to hear this interview, others that I've done with Ed, and numerous other interviews I've done, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for the free weekly newsletter. It's got the highlights of the week, and we're going to start getting other people writing for it as well. And Ed, good luck.
Thank you, Kerry. You too.